Good morning, everyone. Today, we'll be presenting how cultural factors affect wage negotiation in companies, with a specific look at Mylan Hung's Company Limited. Before we begin, let us briefly introduce the members of our team, which includes Nguyễn Anh Tú, Nguyễn Thanh Trúc, Lý Trần Vũ, Chu Mạnh Đạt, and Nguyễn Minh Trường. With that out of the way, let us officially begin. In today's globalized world, wage negotiations is not just about numbers, it's also deeply shaped by cultural values, with both individuals and organizations playing key roles. These values guide how employees and managers approach sensitive discussions, with the main subject of today being salary. To understand this better, our study explores how cultural dimensions influence the way employees at Mylan Hung's Company Limited negotiates their salaries. For analysis, we use Hofstede's five cultural dimensions, which provide a useful framework for interpreting the behaviors that we see in the workplace of today's case. For the first part, I would like to focus on the first dimension of Power Distance Index, or PDI for short. PDI measures how much inequality in power is accepted in a culture. In a high PDI culture, like in Vietnam, where our case is based, hierarchies are respected and authority is rarely challenged. This makes a world of difference between a high PDI culture and a lower PDI culture, which we'll focus on in the later parts of today's presentation. At Mylan Hung's Company Limited, we observe these traits clearly. Uh, the characters of a high power distance culture is presented. First, employees perceive salary as something granted by the boss and not something that it can be freely negotiated. This shows a top-down approach where power lies firmly in management, brass. Secondly, negotiation is not a process that is seen as a dialogue between equals. Instead, employees feel they are making suggestions, not demands. There's a sense of asking for permission rather than asserting their own values. Thirdly, many employees avoid being too direct for fear that they might appear disrespectful or even confrontational. This reflects a desire to maintain harmony and avoids conflict with those in authority. This coincides with our further analysis on high cultures, high PDI cultures that we can see in this table today. We could even clearly we could clearly see the difference with low PDI cultures, which will be contrasted in the second table. We can see which is represented by Swedish culture and cultures in the Netherlands, where employees in these environments are encouraged to see themselves as equals, partners in negotiations. Direct communication about salaries is not only expected but also respected, and pay is viewed as a fair exchange for work, not a favor granted from the above. These differences demonstrate how the same process of negotiating pay can feel completely different depending on cultural context. Thank you very much, and let's direct our attention to the next part.
Continue our presentation. I'm that from group 4. I will talk about individualism and collectivism. It means IDV. About concepts is a dimension of culture that describes how culture scores the balance between the individual and the collective. Culture that score highlight on the individualism index, high IDV, such as the United States and the United Kingdom value individual freedom, responsibility, and autonomy. On the other hand, in nations where the individualism index is low, such as in Japan and Colombia, emphasis lies on close family and group relationships. and being a part of the group being a major factor. The variation affect task allocation and the assessment of work performance and the use of motivation and pride at the workplace. The next about analysis. This response must reflect the characteristic of someone within a high individualism culture background. Members of this group have to stand alone, maintain personal data confidentiality, and try to acquire as much money for themselves as possible. Income would qualify as personal information and cannot be disclosed. It's a private matter. This points to the perception that salary is private information and cannot be shared or talked about freely. This attitude prevalent in individualistic culture like the US, the UK, or Australia, where privacy and personal freedom are valued. Avoid comparison of conflict. I don't want to create comparison or make anyone uncomfortable. Individualistic culture can lead to competition, envy, and injustice and harm working relationship. Therefore, keeping the information confidential is the method of maintaining working harmony. Emphasis of a difference between people. Everyone has different circumstances and ability. This answer demonstrates the conviction that every individual has a right to obtain various results based on their own work and ability. In individualistic culture, different in salary nature within a equitable and competitive system where everyone can develop and profit for their own labor. The last about comparison with collectivist thinking is mean low IDV. In a very collectivist culture, such as South Korea, Vietnam, or Thailand, behavior of expectation are rather dissimilar. Sharing salary data in this culture is not merely a show of solidarity, but also a way to protect the group's collective interests. The employees are allowed to compare wages to ensure internal equity, and if necessary, they can collectively complain to management. Conversely, not sharing salary detail could be seen as lacking transparency or the desire to protect personal interests rather than collective good.
Hello teacher, in this presentation, I will analyze the differences in salary negotiation between masculine and feminine control dimensions. Through interviews with the two individuals who have participated in interviews at Mylan Phương Company from two different countries, Thomas from masculine control and Tina from a feminine control. Generally, the person from a masculine control is quite confident in defending their salary and view receiving a desired salary as a way to affirm their work capabilities. In contrast, the female candidate from the feminine control is very concerned about the work environment and colleges and value the potential development of the company alongside salary issue. From this survey, I conclude several key points about the differences between the two control dimensions in salary negotiations. In sum up, the comparison table between the masculine and feminine control dimension in salary negotiation highlights significant differences. Candidates from masculine control tend to focus on achieving the highest possible salary, viewing it as a demonstration of self-worth. They are often decisive and competitive, emphasizing achievement and experience to secure a high salary. In contrast, candidates from a feminine country prioritize a fair salary while maintaining a good relationship with their employer. They are more cooperative, seeking a mutual beneficial solution and emphasizing the negotiation process. While those from masculine country prioritize a salary and promotion opportunities, those from feminine country emphasize work-life balance, a friendly work environment, and personal growth opportunities. Where negotiations fail, masculine candidates may feel disappointed and seek other opportunities, whereas feminine candidates may accept a lower salary if the work environment is good and opportunity for growth exists. I have a specific example to compare. Candidates from a high masculinity country like Japan, Germany, they may focus on demonstrating their value through work experience, professional skill, and past achievements. They can use specific numbers to prove that they deserve a higher salary. But candidates from high femininity countries like Sweden, Denmark, or Vietnam, they may focus on building good relationship with employer and showing interest in the company's development. They might ask about training and development opportunities as well as policy that support work-life balance. And in conclusion, I have taken note. There are general tendencies, and not everyone in country will conform to these characteristics. Other factors, such as work experience, professional skill, job position, and labor market conditions, are also influence the salary negotiation process. Employers need to be aware of these control differences to negotiate effectively and fairly with candidates from diverse backgrounds.
In the next part of our presentation, I'm going to talk about the uncertainty avoidance index of Hofstede, as I would say in shortly as UAI. So what exactly is UAI? Hofstede Uncertainty Avoidance Index in his model of culture assessed to the degree to which people in society feel threatened, anxious, or tense by situations that are uncertain, unpredictable, or unstructured. At one end of the spectrum, we have society with the high UAI, such as Greece or Japan. In this culture, there are strong preference for stability, strict adherence to rule, and an attempt to minimize the risk by establishing comprehensive and detailed procedures. They seek clarity, order, and feel more comfortable when things are planned and tightly controlled. Conversely, other are society with the low UAI, like Singapore or Denmark. People in this culture are more accepting for uncertainty, flexible in the face of change, and encourage innovation and creativity. They don't feel overly anxious about ambiguous situations and often see them up as opportunity for exploration and novelty. So after interview the Malan Home Company, we have now analyzing high UAI thinking. Let's consider what this meant in particular term, especially in the context of negotiations. In initial analyzing, highlight a typical mindset of someone from a high UAI culture. They not only look forward to look salary, but also expect regularly and reasonableness in decisions-making process. Salary in this context isn't merely a monetary outcome but also an indicator of security and guarantee for their long-term career within the organization. Failure in negotiation is seen as the threat signal for the future rather than the temporary disappointment. Suggests that the employee strongly associates with the success of negotiations with long-term security within the organization, a trait of culture high in uncertainty avoidance. Further, a resistance to ambiguous or suggestive characteristic in the negotiation reflect a desire for control and avoidance of the non-qualified aspect, a common characteristic in high UAI societies where rationally rule and procedures are most valued. In high UAI society, where rationally rule and procedures are more highly valued. To further illustrate the contrast, let's look at the culture with low uncertainty avoiding index, such as the Netherlands, the UK, or Singapore. Workers in these cultures exhibit a much higher tolerance for unexpected outcomes. Instead of viewing failure in negotiation as a serious issue for or a sign of system instability, they see it as the normal part of the interaction and experimentation process between organization and employees. This high risk tolerance also enables them to maintain their commitment regardless of whether these results are as anticipated or not. Uncertainty in these circumstances doesn't necessarily create the anxiety and can sometimes be viewed as space for creativity, experimentations, and innovation in industrial relations.
So we move to the next part of long-term versus short-term orientation. So about the concept first, the WTO control dimensions within Hofstede theory refers to the extent to which controls is directed toward future goals over maintaining traditional values and short-term outcomes. They possess a high index for LTO such as China, South Korea, or Vietnam, where they practice patience, saving, sustainability, and long-term investment. Conversely, countries with low WTO index, says the United States, Nigeria, or the United Kingdom, focus on fast success, respect for traditional, and expectation of clear results in the near future. Organizational and business levels are greatly impacted by this dimension in terms of organizational compensation plan structure, performance management system, and retention system. So after we have analyzed some information through the interview with some employee of the company, we have analyzed that response is typical of control with a high long-term orientation in which long-term build-up and sustainability rank higher than immediate gains. Assigning a top priority to pay increase by seniority reflects a perception that an employee's value is not solely in immediate work effectiveness, but in his or her familiarity with the organization, long-term commitment, and the steadiness he or she brings to the system. This is particularly common in East Asia countries, where long-term commitment and loyalty are considered the foundation of long-term growth. Furthermore, the assumption that paying based on years of service helps create long-term motivation is indicative of a clear predisposition to build up a preventative HR strategy rather than a reactive strategy, investing in long-term labor relations rather than constantly replacing and competing in short-term. So in addition, the warning to avoid focusing solely on short-term performance also reflects a dislike for a reward system based on short-term KPIs that can put individuals under pressures and create extremely short-term behavior that may even backfire and such as data filtering or burnout. So we've moved a little bit about comparison with short-term orientation thinking. So in contrast with the above mindset, short-term orientation cultures will tend to concentrate on current performance and act quickly in reaction to outcomes. So in these cultures, paying based on short-term productivity is seen as fair and reasonable. Those who perform well are rewarded immediately, regardless of whether they are new to the job or have been with the company for a long time. This mindset believes that the value of employees should be measured by specific results, not by years of service. So after we have a conclusion, this study reviews the important roles played by control factors based on Hofstede's 5 dimensions of controls. In the negotiation of salaries at Milan Firm Company, by qualitative interviewing of employees' attitude, perceptions, and behavior, we are in a position to form a deeper understanding of the ways through which these dimensions of control shape not only salary negotiation but entire organizational controls too.